Does anybody have anybody but the freaking Dodgers winning that division? If you do, I might come to your house and punch you.
Driving to left! At the wall, it's gone! Tie game!
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Throwing Partners Podcast. It's Kirby, Joe, and Nate here, coming to you on a Sunday night. Tonight we are going to be previewing the National League, and we agreed tonight that we would start with the National League East and work our way west. Being a National League East person, being a Braves fan, this is kind of right up my alley. But I'm not going to start doing all the talking. I will have Joe or Nathan, whoever wants to start first. Y'all can have at it. So go ahead.
So I'll kick it off. As I mentioned last week with the AL East, I think the NL East is going to be a dogfight with the Phillies, Mets, and Braves all, having the potential to sit atop the division with game 162. Each team is absolutely outfitted to be a juggernaut this year. Now the Braves did lose a lot over the offseason. They lost Max Fried, Jorge Soler, Travis d'Arnaud, Charlie Morton, AJ Minter, Gio Urshela, Roman Liriano, and a few others. So they took a big hit. They did make some additions with Jerickson Profar closer to the start of spring training, which I think should help boost their offense and their outfield depth. If he's used in the outfield, I know that he can play multiple positions. While the Phillies had some notable acquisitions of Jesus Luzardo, Jordan Romano, Max Kepler, and Joe Ross, and not really losing too many players, only losing Jeff Hoffman, Austin Hayes, and then Carlos Estevez. So, it will be a dogfight. And then, obviously with the Mets adding Juan Soto, that's just, they had the biggest free agent signing of the entire offseason. With that, I mean, there's nothing really else. I mean, they did lose a few pieces, but they also brought in a bunch of guys with either 1 to 2 year deals or trades. But they did lose Luis Severino, Jose Quintana, Harrison Bader, Adam Ottavino, Jose Iglesias, and Phil Maton. So it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, with all of the additions that they made, plus adding Juan Soto, retaining Pete Alonso, signing Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas as well. I mean, I think, and Jesse Winker too. I mean, he's been a dog, and he's one of those guys that will just run through a brick wall for any team that he plays on. So it'll be interesting to see how that division shakes up. I do think that I see the Braves winning the division still. And then I see the Mets and the Phillies probably potentially tying for that second spot. I think that all three teams do make the postseason, barring any catastrophic injuries. But I think that the Braves, for the most part, are set up really well still. I think that their hitting core is still there, and I know that they did make some changes to their hitting, their coaching department over the offseason. So, I'm really interested to see what their approach is going to be like this upcoming season. But, adding, Ronald Acuna Jr. back to that lineup is going to be huge for them, and should give them a boost to, put them over both the Phillies and the Mets. After that, I think the Nationals are going to have an interesting season. They're really young, but they, if I'm not mistaken, finished the season really well last year, and they've got a lot of young talent in their system. So it'll be really interesting to see how their season shakes up. I'm not predicting that they're gonna, be a sneak, team, but they're gonna win, 60, 70 games. While the Marlins are gonna be absolutely awful. I've talked about this before. Talked about it a few episodes ago. I just don't understand what that organization does, how they operate, because they've won 2 World Series titles. And the span of a few years, and after each title, they just completely had a fire sale. at the end of each or at the deadline of the next season. And I know that this is different. I believe it's different ownership now. Obviously different GMs, but it's just there is so much like fervor for baseball down in Miami, but it's never, no one has ever, the Marlins haven't been able to capitalize on it because they've never put out a consistent product and they've never built a culture for baseball down there. So, it's really disheartening to see, a city that loves baseball, that has an absolute passion for baseball, just get absolutely screwed because the team ownership doesn't want to spend money, or they win and then they want to capitalize on the value of the players, before they turn costly, so that they ship them off. So it's really disheartening. I wouldn't be surprised if we see one or both of the Rays and Marlins relocate sometime in the near future.
Well, I totally agree with you, Joe. Obviously, I am a homer, and I have the Braves winning the division. Um, but what we're seeing already is we're seeing the Mets already have guys go down. They're having issues with Sean Manaea. They're having issues with Frankie Montas. They're having issues with Jeff McNeil. Um, no telling what's going on with Kodai Senga. I mean, they've got Clay Holmes starting on opening day, for God's sake. Who didn't even start last year, by the way. He was a reliever. So their rotation to me is probably the most sketchy thing about their team. I think their bullpen is actually going to be good. Between Diaz and Minter and Stanek and whoever else that they can squeeze the best out of. And then for the Phillies, I was kind of looking and reviewing their roster before we got on, and I don't know if y'all know this, but the Phillies got old quick. They only have 3 regular starters that are under the age of 31. The rest of them are over the age of 31, which I'm 32, and let me tell you, it feels old doing anything mildly athletic. And I work out often, very often. So just throwing that out there, I don't know. Obviously, they're going to be a very good team. Their pitching staff is very deep, especially their rotation. But once again, their rotation is also not young. Now, you have Christopher Sanchez and you have Ranger Suarez that are both under 30. But what about Wheeler and Nola? If both of them are healthy, the Phillies are going to be very good. They're going to be set as far as their rotation. But if Wheeler or Nola go down, who have been their horses the last 3 or 4 years, their team is not going to be near as strong as what they have been in the past. We're honestly only like 2 to 3 good seasons of Zach Wheeler away from us talking about him being a Hall of Fame candidate. Because if he goes out and has another 2 to 3 good years, he will very much be on a Hall of Fame track. He got a late start in his career, but the last 5 or 6 years he's been outstanding. And that contract has really worked out for the Phillies. The Braves are going to be very good. We all know that. They're also getting 2 All-Stars back before the middle of May or so. In Ronald Acuna Jr. and Spencer Strider, who, by the way, we're going to see Spencer Strider pitch tomorrow in a Grapefruit League game, so I'm very excited to see that. I hope he does well. I hope he stays healthy. I hope the velo looks good. All the good things I want to see. They filled a big hole in signing Jerks and Profar because that left field position had been such a gaping hole for them, really over the past couple of seasons. They've run out Eddie Rosario, Jared Kelenic, all these other people that are really not meant to be everyday starters, but Profar is. Profar also, he's a big personality guy. He's a big clubhouse guy, and that's what the Braves need. They need somebody who, and also too, he's a Dodger hater, which is freaking great because everybody in Braves country very much hates the Dodgers. And then also too with Profar, it's one of those things. He wants to be here. We like guys that want to play for our teams. And Profar, growing up in Curacao, idolized Andrew Jones. Who didn't if you were a 90s Braves kid. So I think that says a lot about Profar. The fact that he wanted to be in Atlanta. I'm excited that he is here. I think he's going to be a great leadoff guy until Acuna comes back. And then I think once Ronnie comes back, he'll just drop down to the 2 hole. Their rotation will be good, health pending. If Sale and Swellenbach and Lopez and Grant Holmes and some of these other guys, if they are able to stay healthy, and if Strider comes back and he's healthy, their rotation will be fine. But if we see like a Sale or a Lopez go down quickly or a Schwellenbach regression, the rotation could be in trouble. I'm still not a huge fan of the bullpen right now. I think they have some kinks to work out. But with all of the guys that they have just sent to minor league camp, I think we're seeing a path where we have like an AJ Smith Shaver start the year in the bullpen, and then I think he transitions like how they did Spencer Strider 3 years ago when they started him in the pen because he has great velo, and then eventually he became kind of the long guy, and then from there you saw him become a starter, and the rest is history, and now he's just a starter. So I think that that's actually the path they're going to put him on this year, because you've got Grant Holmes and Ian Anderson that can fill those roles until Strider gets back, and then they can boot one of them either to the bullpen, or if somebody like Ian Anderson is just not great, I mean they can always DFA him, and I think ultimately that may end up happening with him anyway because the command is just not there. It's terrible. So that's kind of my take on the Braves. On the NL East, I think they do win that division. Do I think that they win 100 to 104 games like they have in the past few seasons? No. I think that the winner of this division maybe wins 92 to 94 games. I don't think it's going to be anything just outlandish like in 2023 when they won 104 games and clinched before 9/11. I don't see it happening. I think, Joe, you're right. You're exactly right when it comes to all three of these teams making the postseason. I think it will be a Braves, Mets, Phillies. That'll be half of the NL field in the postseason, because all of them have a lot of talent. They also have management that cares enough to go out and fix their needs at the trade deadline, and that's a big deal too. Because you can have a great team, but if your ownership or your front office doesn't want to go fix anything at the trade deadline, you're SOL. So I think that all three of them have a very great chance to make the postseason. Nathan, what about you? What do you think?
I might have to come in here with a controversial take, but my gut wants to say that the Mets are going to take it, but
Yikes.
you have you bring up good points with the injuries coming in early. Who knows? I mean, I think it comes down to how long they sit out. Hypothetically, in a good world, in the perfect world, I think that the Mets do take it. But I also agree with both of your takes that all three of these teams are making the playoffs. Because if you just look at the other divisions, they're not really stacking up the same way that these three teams do. So I think that the Braves will be the second playoff team, and then we'll have the Phillies coming in for the third one. But that's, again, barring injuries, because who knows? We could have Soto go down with whatever sort of injury, and he's done for the year. 1 of 15, by the way. And then their whole season is in the shitter. So I think it's right now I'm going to just stick with my gut. I'm going to say Mets taking it, but I'll stick with the other votes saying these three teams are making the playoffs because they're all talented and they got the firepower to get there. So that's where I'll leave it at.
Yeah, I think that's something we can all agree on, is that all three of those teams are postseason bound. Now, moving on to the Central. I'm going to be honest with you, gentlemen. I don't like the Brewers winning that division again. I'm not high on them right now. They lost two of their best players, being Devin Williams and Willie Adames, who Willie Adames was their clubhouse guy, their clubhouse leader, and their all-star. Devin Williams, obviously one of the best closers in the game. It's very hard to replace both of them. I for the Central, I have the Cubs winning that division. Do I think the Cubs are that great? No. I don't think that any team from that division wins 90 games. I think it's going to be like how the AL West was last year, where the winner won, 88 games. So I personally think that the Cubs are going to win that division. Obviously they traded for Tucker and Presley. They're going to have Matt Shaw in that lineup. He's a very talented young player. They also got Justin Turner, who we know is a great clubhouse guy. He's a great veteran to have around for young guys too. Um, I'm not feeling Milwaukee. The Cardinals are going to suck. The Pirates did absolutely nothing but get Tommy fighting Pham to come join them, and that's about it. So, and then the Reds, I like the Reds, but the Reds didn't make any moves to me that moved the needle. You went out and got Gavin Lux. You got a couple of these other guys, but none of them to me move the needle. Not to mention, they still need pitching because they play in a notoriously known ballpark that's built for hitters, Great American Small Park. So I can't be high on the Reds because of their lack of needle movers. Now on the other hand, the Cubs, you could say that Kyle Tucker was a needle mover. Yes, they lost Cody Bellinger. Yes, they lost Isak Paredes, but their lineup actually looks pretty decent with Tucker in it. With Suzuki and Tucker and Happ and probably Shaw and Nico Horner, and you've got Dansby in there somewhere and PCA. Their lineup to me looks all right. Their bullpen looks all right, and so does their rotation. So I'm going with the Cubs. I don't know about y'all. I want to hear from your thoughts on it. What do you think, Joe and Nate?
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and say that I do kind of agree with you that the Cubs did make some pretty notorious or big moves, over the offseason. And the Brewers losing Willie Adames and uh, their pitcher Devin Williams was a pretty big blow to them. Both were clubhouse guys that loved being there and were the heart and soul of that team. But the Cubs are going to have their first real big test, proving if they're legit or not, coming up on Tuesday when they play the Dodgers in the Tokyo series. These games count. I mean, this goes towards their record, so it's going to be interesting to see how they step up to the challenge. It's an interesting environment. Players that have played in this series before have said that it's a really weird feeling, playing a meaningful game in the middle of spring training and then having to go back to spring training. They feel like it's not a true opening day. So it'll be interesting to see how they, step up to, the assignment. Both both the Cubs and the Dodgers lost to one of the teams in Tokyo. They got swept. The Tigers swept both the Dodgers and the Cubs. So it'll be interesting to see how the real series goes with both of those teams. But yeah, I agree. I do like the moves that the Cubs made over the offseason. They made a lot of depth moves that should bolster their lineup. And Kyle Tucker is a difference maker. And the Brewers losing Willie Adames, who is a difference maker himself, was a really big blow to them. And I don't think that they did a good enough job addressing that hole in their lineup now. Um, I'm sure that Yelich is going to have a good year. I believe Rhys Hoskins is on that team now as well. I'm sure that he'll have a good year. Contreras will probably have a really good year as well, but I don't know, how much they need out of everybody else to get there. I mean, it really is their division to lose. I feel like they're kind of in a similar situation that the Astros are in, where it's like it's their division to lose, but it's the Cubs' division to win. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I just think the Cubs made the right moves over the offseason to put themselves in a really good position, but the Cubs have to go out there and prove it because for the last 5 years it's felt like it's the Brewers' division.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of one of those things where I'm gonna believe in the Brewers until someone proves differently.
Yeah.
So, I do think that the Cubs will win the division, but I would not be surprised if the Brewers end up on top either.
I'm gonna say something that may be controversial. Um, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say this: if the Pirates' rotation stays healthy this year, and they include Bubba Chandler, the Pirates might have the best rotation in the Central. They might have one of the top 4 or 5 rotations in the National League. Between Skeens and Jared Jones and Bubba Chandler and Mitch Keller, that top 4 plays. That is solid. If you watch the Bubba Chandler highlights from the other day, that dude is electric. And I don't know if y'all saw the quote that he had, but apparently he wants to start on opening day next year. And that's what he was kind of talking mess to Skeens about it. So I like that confidence from him though, because obviously he does have great tools. He is a good pitcher. So I think if all 4 of them stay healthy this year, that rotation can be very good. But however, once again, we're talking about a Pirates lineup that sucks. Their lineup's terrible. They're going to lose so many games this year that are going to be like 3-1, 4-2, games that they should be winning. Because their lineup sucks. I mean, they're going to have Tommy Pham, they're going to have Andrew McCutchen, they're going to have Brian Reynolds, and who else are you going to have? Nobody. That lineup sucks.
O'Neal Cruz.
That's the one. They need him to be an all-star, MVP caliber season if they want to have a chance of winning 75 games. But
Yeah.
I mean, who knows if that's even going to happen? Nathan, what do you think about the NL Central?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with you guys. I think it will end up being the Cubs. Like if you go through and if you just paper test it, look at the acquisitions they've made. They've made probably about 15 notable acquisitions with Tucker, with Presley, Justin Turner. He's older than dirt, but he's still going to be good for them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they even picked up former Tiger Matt Boyd, former absolute cornball Matt Boyd. But they're on paper they lost. They had 3 big losses, I would say, in Bellinger, Hendricks, and Paredes. But honestly, I don't think that it really affects them that badly with Shaw coming up, with Alcantara coming up. I think they still have enough firepower to take this division.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't think the Brewers are just going to lay down that easily. Like, here's one factor that you guys haven't taken in yet. Craig Counsell up and left the Brewers to join the Northsiders.
Mm-hmm.
That pissed every Milwaukee fan, every Wisconsin off to the T. Like Whitefish Bay, where Craig Counsell's from, they took the name off the park. So they have a personal vendetta with that guy.
Wow.
And I mean, honestly, if you look at their lineup, they lost Adames. It's going to be a very big hole to fill in between Terang and Ortiz, trying to figure out who is going to do that. But I think having Nestor there, having Quintana there, having a couple of veterans is going to help. Mark Canha will be able to fill a hole somewhere.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mark Canha is going to have a hole to fill for them if he comes up out of the minors. I mean, crap, he played for the Tigers last year, and that set off a whole list of things that happened at the end of the year. And the other thing is that they kept Freddie Peralta for this season. Like, he had a kind of a down year last year, but 2-3 years ago, that guy was off the charts. I'm pretty sure he started in the All-Star game one of those years. Like, you regress, but you just don't lose that type of skill. So I think in the end, the Cubs are still going to take this, but it's not going to be by a mile. Like, the Brewers are going to fight this to the end. And like you said, the Cardinals, they just suck. They're old. Like, there's no talking. There's nothing else to talk about. Like, they signed Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson and Matt Carpenter back. Like, okay, if it was 2013, they would probably be so happy. But it's 2025. They're older than dirt. The Pirates, they they just signed back all the people that they were going to lose anyways. Like McCutcheon, they're just waiting for him to fall down the stairs and call it a career. Frazier, yeah, he's the light in the dark room for them. And then what they're doing with the pitching is insane. But they're not doing anything really with players in the field. Like they had a few games last year where O'Neill was really good and he got hurt, so that pretty much derailed their whole season. So once he came back, they had a nice season. They won some games. I mean, what did they end up last year? I believe with 77 wins. They were half decent after 76 wins. So this division ended up being half decent at the end. Like 76 was the lowest wins, and Milwaukee won with 93 wins, and then the Cubs were there with 83. So, like 4 of the teams being within 6 wins, like something happened there in the end with Pittsburgh and with Cincinnati that was positive for them. Granted, I don't think either of them made any moves to help them, but give Pittsburgh maybe 2-3 years, maybe make a couple good signings, bring up their guys. We could be looking at another powerhouse. But for now, the Cubs.
I mean, we say that with the Pirates, but we have a team that we can compare them to. They're the Seattle Mariners of the National League. They could have one of the best pitching staffs in franchise history.
Exactly.
But a lineup that can't hit worth a lick.
Exactly.
I mean, and ownership that's not willing to spend money on adding players. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. You can't tell me that Pittsburgh isn't a destination city for, being able to play in that ballpark. I mean, are you kidding me? Like, I mean, that frustrates me. I think that we're also forgetting, and we're a little bullish on the Cubs because they made the splashy trade for Kyle Tucker, but the Brewers are a pitching factory. I mean, they churn out pitchers like the Rays and the Astros. I mean,
I'm pretty sure they already got a guy back there to cover Williams. I was trying to look for his name, but I'm pretty sure I saw him come out the pen last year and throw 100, and I was oh,
yeah, and that's probably why they traded Devin Williams. I mean, because they knew that they had that card to play. So I think that we are counting the Brewers out a little too early. And I did say that I could see them winning the division. And again, I will say that it is because they lost Adames and the Cubs added Tucker. I mean, that is huge. But again, I'm not going to write the Brewers off at all.
Shouldn't.
Just like I'm not going to write the Astros off. I feel like they're in very similar. I feel like they're in very similar, spots right now. So
Here's a segue, Kirby.
Yeah, no segue. I'm just saying. I feel like there are 2 teams that have consistently proved it over the last 5 years, and it's still each of their divisions to lose. And that's where the comparison is.
I'm gonna say.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I'm gonna say one more thing before we move on. To the NL West, which we probably have a consensus there. It's probably no contest. But there's one name that I am so interested that is not on the player side in the NL Central this year. It's on the manager side, and that is Terry Francona managing the Reds this year. That's a group of young guys. Mm-hmm. Terry Francona is one of the best managers that we have ever seen. He is fantastic. Wherever he has been awesome. Obviously with the Red Sox, and then with the Indians / Guardians. He's amazing. Now, I'm not saying he's some kind of miracle worker with the Reds roster, but if I'm a young guy, I would sure as hell like to play for Terry Francona. We saw this turnaround happen with the Rays in 08-09 with Joe Madden. Obviously we've seen
it again with the Cubs.
Yes, and then we've seen it as well, like with AJ Hinch and the Astros. Yep. Granted, they were very talented. But I'm just Stephen Vogt obviously is another one. He's a great guy, great manager. But it's just one of those things, like the way players respond to the manager I mean, that means a lot too. And I think that they're going to respond very well to him. I think they're going to develop well. I mean, they're also going to have Matt McClain back, who was a very talented player 2 years ago. So I don't know. I don't think they have the pitching to really compete, but I'm really interested to see what Tito does with that team. And I would love to see the Reds be competitive because it's such a great baseball city. They've got such a great fan base. They've got an awesome ballpark. But I'm not really seeing it yet. Now if they let Tito manage that team for 3 or 4 years, then we might see something. But this year I'm not feeling it just yet. I think it's going to take a couple of years. But anyway, moving on to the NL West, does anybody have anybody but the freaking Dodgers winning that division? If you do, I might come to your house and punch you.
Well, I don't have anybody, but the Dodgers winning the division. But I will say, taking a look at the Diamondbacks lineup right now, I will say it does look surprisingly good.
Mm-hmm.
I think that their whole and even with their staff, it looks very good. I mean, they had a huge addition over the offseason, signing Corbin Burns, who was one of the best pitchers in the AL. Previously, the NL with the Brewers, and they're adding him to a rotation that had Zach Gallen at the top of it. I think that's going to stack up to be one of the better rotations in the league. And then you've got a pretty decent, I would say pretty, balanced lineup with, Corbin Carroll at the top, Ketel Marte, Lourdes Gurriel. They traded for Josh Naylor. They have a Eugenio Suarez, Gabriel Moreno, Pavin Smith or Randall Grichuk, and then, Jake McCarthy, and then Orlando Perdomo.
Yeah.
I butchered his name, but you know what? They've got a really good lineup. They've got a decent lineup. I think that they're probably slotted for a wild card spot. Probably the last wild card spot, considering how we see the NL East playing out,
Mm-hmm.
if that's a possibility. But I do think that they will be a very good team. Now, everybody knows the Dodgers. I don't even need to do we even need to go over what the Dodgers did? I mean, over the offseason, they signed Blake Snell.
Signed literally everyone.
Yeah, Tyler Glasnow is coming back from injury. They've got Yoshinobu Yamamoto, in his sophomore season, looking to make improvements over, his last season. They signed Roki Sasaki. And then Shohei Ohtani is probably going to come back and pitch at some point, this season. So it'll be interesting to see how this entire season plays out for the Dodgers. They're going to be an absolute unit. It's infuriating, but like I mentioned a few episodes ago, I'm more mad at the other teams for not even being in the realm of competitiveness when it comes to trying to sign these guys. I can hate them because no one else is even attempting. So
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is. I mean, they've got literally like an all-star lineup pretty much. So it really is their season to lose. I mean, it's not just their division to lose. It's literally they're the defending world champions. It's their title to lose. It really is with the lineup that they have stacked up. I don't think that the Giants are going to be too great.
No.
Their lineup is pretty bad. They did add Willie Adames, who, I mean, we were saying was a difference maker for the Brewers. But the Brewers, if you put the Brewers and the Giants lineup, together, it's not really comparable. Willie Adames was kind of what the Brewers needed to get over the hump. The Giants are in hell. Now their rotation is interesting. Logan Webb, solid, number one. Justin Verlander, former Astro, former Tiger, also like 40 years old at this point.
42, I think he is. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I thought I was being generous with the 40. Robbie Ray, Lord bless his soul. Jordan Hicks and Kyle Harrison. I mean, it's just Jordan Hicks once upon a time, was throwing gas. Then he kind of fell off a cliff.
Scary
But
Cardinals bullpen pitcher. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, it's just the Padres also have a very interesting lineup. I mean, you got Luis Ariz, Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, Jackson Merrill, Xander Bogaerts, Jake Cronenworth, Connor Joe, Jason Hayward, former Astro, and then Elise Diaz. They're going to be an interesting team, but they also made some really interesting moves over the offseason. I think that their ownership group is also looking to unload salary just because, over the last couple of years, they have been dealing with the death of their owner. A new ownership group, I think took over, and they are not as willing to spend as the former owner. So I think that they're looking to shed salary at some point. They've got Dylan Cease heading up that rotation. Fantastic pitcher. Michael King, who had a pretty good year last year. Yu Darvish, who missed a large portion of last year due to personal matters. Nick Pivetta, and then Randy Vasquez.
The top,
like I said, it'll be an interesting lineup. Sorry?
The top four looks good.
The top four does look good, and the lineup is solid. Xander Bogaerts can have even a decent year. He has not lived up to that contract, but if he can have even like a shred of a year that he had in Boston, they'll be a very good team. But I think that they're going to have some shortcomings, just in other places, and just the fact that I think the Padres, the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers are just both better. So it has nothing to do with me not thinking that the talent is there. I think the talent is there, but there probably will be some regression, as the lineup has gotten a little bit older now. And then the Rockies are the Rockies.
Beautiful.
There's Ezekiel Tovar.
Yeah.
He's really good.
Beautiful ball.
That's about it.
Horrible team. That's about the nicest thing I could say about the Rockies. Obviously,
Ice cold beer.
I'm going to do what?
Said ice cold beer.
That's right. Good beer there too, by the way.
Yeah.
Almost straight from the factory.
Yep.
Let me just say this. I agree with Joe here. I think the Diamondbacks are a better team than the Padres. I also think that they have they've got a better coaching staff between Torey Lavello and Brent Strom. I also think that they've got better chemistry as a team as well. So I think that plays a big part. But I'm gonna ask you, gentlemen. I'm gonna ask you two questions. One is this: do we, as a group here, do we all three agree that we think that the Diamondbacks are a better team than the Padres? Yes or no? Joe, you said yes. Nathan, do you feel?
I do.
I think in general, yes.
Okay, that's fair. And then here's my second question. If the Dodgers pitching staff can remain, let's say, like 75 to 80% healthy, meaning that they get 20-plus starts from like 4 or 5 of their horses, do the Dodgers make a run at Seattle's win total, like at 116? Do they make a run at that? I've been contemplating this for a while because they have so much pitching depth. They have so much positional depth. They just sent Hai-Sung Kim to the minors. They're going to have guys thrown in AAA that would be a number 4 or 5 guy on a lot of other teams.
Mm-hmm.
They have so much depth. If they can get 25 starts from, let's say, Yamamoto, Snell, Sasaki, Glasnow, and then pick whoever after that. Maybe they get 10 or 15 from Shohei. Do they make a run at 116? Because just a few years ago we saw them like at 107, 110. I really think that they could make a run at 116 if they're healthy. Now, granted, that's hard. That's asking a lot because none of them historically are healthy. And a lot of their position players are older now. They're not young. I don't know. But what do Do we think that they have a real chance to go for 116?
So I'm gonna say no, only because looking at the American League and the year that the Mariners set that record, can you tell me how many teams won over um 95 games that season in the AL?
That was 2001, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to say there was probably, obviously, the Mariners won over 95 games. I'm going to say that there's maybe only one more team that won 95 games or more, or there was zero.
There were two. It was the Oakland Athletics who won 102 games, and then the New York Yankees who won 95. The next team with the highest win total was the Cleveland Indians with 91 wins, and then there was no after that. The next two winningest teams were the Minnesota Twins at 85 wins, and then the Boston Red Sox at 82 wins. And then the Angels and the Rangers both won 75 and 73 games.
Horrible.
I don't think that the NL is going to shape out in a similar way that the Dodgers are going to have that many layups. I mean, you had the Tampa Bay Rays who lost 100 games, the Baltimore Orioles who lost 98 games, the Toronto Blue Jays that lost 82 games, the Kansas City Royals who lost 97, the Tigers that lost 96, and then the Rangers and Angels lost 89 and 87. I just don't think that many teams are going to lose that many games because I think that the NL is one of the most stacked, is the stacked league this year. I don't think that they're going to have that many wins against a division like the NL East, and even against the Padres and the Diamondbacks, who both those rivalries are very heated. I can see both of those, division, like both the Padres and the Diamondbacks putting up a very good fight against the Dodgers, not allowing them to get to that record. And then obviously, you have the Braves' hatred towards the Dodgers. You have the Mets' hatred towards the Dodgers. The Phillies' hatred towards the Dodgers. I mean, all of these, I can say that for almost any team. Almost any team hates the Dodgers. But those teams are good, and those teams will step up because teams like the Padres and the Diamondbacks have stepped up to the Dodgers in the postseason. I mean, these aren't very different teams that have won against the Dodgers in the postseason. They know how to beat them. Now, the Dodgers have made a few, all-star additions since, losing in 2021 and losing in 2022 or 2023 against the Diamondbacks. So, they've made some additions, but those teams, the Padres and the Diamondbacks, have beaten them on the biggest stage. I do not see them being able to, just roll over the Diamondbacks and the Padres like the Seattle Mariners were able to roll over literally, all of the rest of the American League. So, I don't see it. It's a possibility because of the lineup and the rotation that they've built, but I don't see that happening.
I think you bring up a great point, and I think if it was flip flops, like if the Dodgers played in the American League, I would put on their over under being like 115 easy because the American League sucks.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if the Dodgers played in the AL Central and they got to play the White Sox 13 times?
Yeah, that too.
If they got to play the White Sox 13 times, they might win 15 of those, even only playing 13 games. Because the White Sox are that freaking terrible. I can't imagine if they played in an actually bad division because their division, yes, the Rockies suck. The Giants are not going to be great, but the Diamondbacks and the Padres are going to be good teams. Not to mention, you have three teams in the NL East who are also going to be very good. There's a scenario where you have 6 teams in the National League win 90 games. It's very possible. The American League, we may only see 1 or 2 teams win 90 games. We may see a lot of 88, 89 win teams in the American League, kind of like we did last year. So I think you're spot on, Joe. What do you think, Nathan? Are you hopping on the 116 bandwagon or not?
Listen, initially I was going to say yes, but now I'm changing my answer. I agree it's going to be a no. And I think that has less to do with the pitching and more to do with the offense. Because like you said, they're not that young anymore. I mean, Mookie's 32, Edmonds 30, Max Muncy's 34.
Freeman's 34.
Yeah, 35.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, 35.
Shohei's 30.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Shohei is 30. And I mean, are we going to lie to ourselves? One of those 5 is going to regress at the plate. I mean, Shohei's still at a point where he probably is going to go 60-60, but hot take, that was a joke. But I think one of those other guys just gives out and they don't get that same support. And I had to look up the schedule too. And Kirby, do you know who the first 6 games are against this year for the Dodgers?
Well, they play the Braves in one of them, and then
they open this. They play second season or the third series, sorry, against the Detroit Tigers at home.
Oh boy. Well, I know the Braves start on the West Coast, which I actually like that for them because they play San Diego first and then they go to LA, which I mean, honestly, I'm not going to be surprised if the Braves leave there 2-4 or 1-5, because they tend to start out the season playing like crap, especially opening day. So yeah, I don't feel great about their opening weekend for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
and
go ahead.
The other good points that you guys make is that the Diamondbacks and the Padres are good. The one player that I'm still never going to sleep on is Fernando Tatis Jr. It's been the spark plug since he came to the bigs. It doesn't matter if he sucked, if he got hurt. Like every time his face is anywhere in that stadium, they're hyped. Like they made the playoffs in 2020, and the San Diego streets were full. They were in the middle of pandemic, and they were full. They love baseball. They love Fernando Tatis Jr. I think it's hard to count them out as taking a bunch of games from not a bunch of games, but taking a few games from the Dodgers on this season. So 116, no, I don't think they're making it.
Okay, so I think we have pretty much agreed on who we think are going to be each division winner, who we feel like the wild card teams are going to be for the most part. We've got an NL East, but probably either Braves, Mets, NL Central Cubs, or maybe the Brewers, and then obviously the Dodgers playing the NL West, and then our wild card teams being Mets, Phillies, D-backs. As far as a National League champion, I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all I think it's the Dodgers. As much as it pains me to say that, like it burns my soul up saying that. I just feel like if there's any team that could repeat as at least National League champions and probably World Series champions, it's them. Because for one, they didn't lose a whole lot, but they gained a hell of a lot. So I feel like I'm very confident in saying that yes, the National League has good teams. No, the rest of the teams are not as good as the Dodgers. So I'm going to go with them as the National League champion, and then I'm going to go. I'm going to pick them to repeat. We haven't seen that in this millennium.
25 years.
Yeah, it's been 25 years. So that's what I'm going to go with. Maybe a hot take, or maybe it's just a safe bet. But what do y'all think? Who's going to win the National League this year?
I actually have a different take. This is probably a hot take. But I think the Mets are going to win the NL. I think they will get healthy. I think that Juan Soto is a difference maker. I think that the team is already really good. Retaining Pete Alonso was probably a big morale boost to everybody in that clubhouse. And then Juan Soto on top of that, it was just a cherry on top. Now again, they need to get healthy in the starting pitching department. But you already know that Steve Cohen's not afraid to go out and make a move at the deadline. He does not give a crap. He will go make a move. He will go absorb salary for whatever holes that they need. I don't really know if the Dodgers have if the Dodgers have a hole. I don't know if they have what it takes to fill it. I mean, I don't know if they have the resources anymore. They've done a lot of adding at the deadline over the last couple of years, and I bet if I look at a farm projection, they're probably up there at the top still.
Yeah, they're like number 5,
But
which blows my mind.
yeah, I don't understand how these projections get made because I never hear any of the other teams that they trade with winning the trade based off of the prospects that the Dodgers give up. So it doesn't make sense to me, but that's besides the point. I have the Mets winning the NL. I think they'll have a good season. I really do.
Nathan, what about you? What do you think?
Joe has made drastically interesting points there. Let me add a little bit more to that. I think that to me, yes, the Dodgers are up there with their farm system, but I feel like if like I said, one of those guys goes down, like I don't really know how much I trust someone else to take their spot. Like say Betts goes down with an injury, like yes, they're gonna move people around, but then after that, it's I don't know. I don't really like what their depth is. Pajes needs to have another good year. Outman needs to have another good year. Conforto is going to be sitting there rotting away, so who knows? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. The Mets do present an interesting challenge. Yeah, if they're healthy, I think they could give the Dodgers a run for their money in the NLCS. Ultimately, man, I think yeah, the Dodgers are there. I think the Dodgers are in the World Series. I don't know if they repeat, but they're there. I don't want to say they repeat because I don't want to speak it into the universe.
I mean, I just hate saying it but I think that if there's any team that could possibly do it, I think it's them. And it seems like every year at the deadline, they go out and make some big flashy move, like the Max Scherzer, Trey Turner deals, or they just seem to do it every trade deadline. They always make good trades. I actually saw this theory the other day on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, that said that the Dodgers intentionally overhype their prospects so that they can go out and trade them to get good players back. And I'm like,
honestly, it makes sense.
That makes perfect sense because they always have a top 5 farm system, but you never hear of any of them developing to be great players. None of them.
And that's exactly what I was saying. I mean, it's kind of like, I'm going to segue this to the Astros, but it's kind of like, what the Astros did. I mean, if you really think about it, like, who have the Astros given up to get Garrett Cole, to get Justin Verlander twice at this point, to get Zach Greinke? None of those guys developed. Like, all of the prospects that the Astros gave up to get any of those guys, other than I would say Joe Musgrove, who went to the Pirates in the Garrett Cole trade, really ever panned out to be anything. I mean, they've made other trades. They've made trades where they fleeced. They gave up Miles Straw for Phil Maton and Yainer Diaz. I mean, what are we talking about here? Like,
they fleeced the hell out of the Tigers.
The Astros farm system isn't ranked high anymore, but I just feel like teams aren't even, like, they're hesitant to trade with them now because where did these guys go? I mean, they at one point had a very high ranking farm system from, like, it was 2015 to 2019. They had a very high ranking farm system, but none of the guys that were outside of the core really developed. I mean, it didn't happen. I think that maybe the Dodgers do a better job of hyping up their players than the Astros do, but it's kind of the same thing. It's like every trade deadline, the Astros are making these moves. They're making splashy moves at that. Where are these guys that they're trading away? Like, where did they go? How did they turn out? And it's just like, I have that same thought about teams that trade with the Dodgers. Like, how are you getting this in return? And they're not developing. I mean, you are giving away a superstar and you're getting almost nothing in return. That's how I feel.
Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, the only really fair trade that I feel like that has happened in like the last 5 or 6 years was the original Soto trade from when he went to the Padres, because the Nationals actually got a very nice return there. They got James Wood, they got C.J. Abrams, they got Mackenzie Gore, and then obviously the Padres got Juan Soto. I was like, man, this is a very fair trade for both sides. Obviously, the Padres are going to get Soto, and the Nationals are going to be set up for the next 3 to 5 years. And now, if you look at it, the Nationals have I don't know, 3 or 4 guys that are under 25 that are stud muffins, that are very talented players. So
James Wood scares me.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like between Wood,
He's a
Abrams,
freaking
and
monster,
Dylan Cruz,
dude.
they have 3 guys under 23.
Yeah.
Outstanding. So I mean, they're a couple of arms away from being competitive. What if Michael Soroka comes back this year and shoves in 22 to 25 starts? It could very well happen. He's looked good so far in the spring. So I don't know. I'm very interested to see how the season plays out. And right now, gentlemen, we are 11 official days away from opening day. March 27th will be here before we know it. And quite frankly, I just can't wait. This is my favorite time of the year. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm very excited.
We're actually 2 days away from opening
Okay,
day.
now I'm talking about for the rest of the league, not for the.
Oh, look at the schedule, bro. It still says opening
I don't care
day.
about a Tokyo series. So Joe,
Technicalities.
yeah. So Joe, me and Nathan agree that we're gonna have a 2018 World Series repeat, and you have a 1986 World Series repeat. So I guess we'll see how it
behind the bag.
Yeah, I guess we'll see how this season turns out. Do we have anything else that we want to add before we close?
I mean, do y'all want to give updates from around the league? I mean, we're running a little long, but
I will say this: after the Garrett Cole news with the Yankees, I don't even know right now if they're like an 83 win team, because their lineup sucks. Their rotation is a Max Fried injury away from them being an under 500 team. Because who in their right mind wants to see Carlos Rodon, Marcus Stroman, and Clark Schmidt go out and shove, 3 times a week? Not me, and not Yankees fans either. I mean, if you're relying on Marcus Stroman to give you 30 starts to be competitive, you're done. You're cooked.
That's Cubs fans.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we could talk about that, or we could talk about the Rays, imploding their stadium deal in St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
Where are the Rays gonna play? I mean, both them and the A's are in interesting situations.
It's
both
really an
because the Athletics, the A's haven't even started building on the land that they're supposed to play in a few years. The Rays aren't going to invest 60. You cannot convince me that first of all, St. Petersburg or the Rays are going to invest $60 million to replace that roof if the stadium is just going to be empty in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think it's interesting that both the Orlando project and the Portland project both came out with renderings of their potential stadiums in the last 2 weeks. Coinciding with kind of all of this mayhem between the Athletics and the Rays. I'm thinking relocation, honestly. I don't see a need for the league to expand when you already have so many bottom feeders like the Rockies, the Marlins, who just suck, and then you have the Rays, the Marlins, the Athletics, who are competitive but just won't spend money and can't get fans because there's no players to root for because they're all just shipped off once there's any value to them.
And the stadium stinks and it's in a bad spot.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just like it's very interesting news, happening there. I'll be interested to see how the Rays handle that situation. Maybe they try to actually move into Tampa, find a development project that will lead them closer to the metro area. I mean, we know it's possible for them to draw a crowd. I mean, if this weekend we had Savannah Banana baseball being played in the
At Raymond James
Buccaneers
Stadium,
stadium, which is in Tampa Bay.
Yep.
It's sold out, 61,000 people.
Was it 61, 65, something like that? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's possible if you give them a good product to root for, and the Rays are a good product, but first of all, you have to drive an hour from Tampa to get to St. Petersburg. It's a hard drive. That's a hard drive to make it out at a 7:10, first pitch if you're getting out of work at 5 or 6. That's hard to do, you know. So, I don't blame the fans for not showing up because that is hard, but it's not the same situation as like it was with the Athletics where their ownership never spent any money and the stadium was an absolute junk heap. I mean, it kind of is a similar situation, but it is what it is. I mean, I just think it's different because of the location of where it is. It's a team named after Tampa, located in St. Petersburg. So, it's an hour away. So, I think that'll be an interesting development.
Yeah, I think the other interesting thing too is what is it? Portland, and whoever else were not the only other cities to start firing up projects. The Nashville group released renderings of their team colors and some logos. They're ready to make a run. I know Charlotte is ready to make a run too. So
I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Montreal project pop up here in a minute.
Yeah, Canada does want another team.
Mm-hmm.
That's my whole thing. Clearly, where the A's and where the Marlins are at right now, and also to the Rays. You have 3 teams that have terrible fan base support. Now, granted, the Rays don't really have an excuse because they always put out a pretty good product, but their team never gets the fan support. They're not even selling out postseason games, which should just piss everybody in baseball off, because that's terrible. But if you have a city like Nashville or Portland that desperately wants a team, if I'm an ownership group, I am moving that team to that city. I am moving them there. I am shipping the Rays north to become the Nashville Stars or whatever they're going to become. The Nashville Hounds or whatever they're going to be.
Sound, yeah, whatever they're talking about. Yep.
I would do that in a heartbeat as an owner because ultimately, you're going to be making more money. Your franchise valuation will grow. And then for the A's, Portland has been dying to get a team. They have all the plans ready. All of their city planners and managers are ready. They want to build a stadium that's going to have a 30 to 35,000, capacity, stadium, and they want to fill it every single game. Move the A's there. They're already ready for them. So I don't know. It's really an eyesore right now to have 2 teams that are professional teams playing in minor league parks. And I think if Manfred gets anything done before the end of his tenure, it's that both of them, or at least 2 out of those 3, need to move. They need to move. And that way they can have great fan bases. They can put a better product on the field. Just different things like that.
Yeah, I think the A's are banking on the Golden Knights effect. They expanded the NHL, and added the Golden Knights in there in Vegas, and they're a huge hit, good success. I think they're kind of banking on the same thing. Nevada has produced a lot of good MLB players. I think they're banking on that fact. I would not be surprised in the slightest if Nashville gets that team, gets Tampa, because like Las Vegas, Nashville is a giant tourist spot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Tennessee. They love baseball. I mean, the Tennessee Volunteers are, God, they're one of the best teams in NCAA pretty much every year.
Mm-hmm.
They have Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's one of the best teams pretty much every year. So there's no there's nothing denying that they don't love baseball, and I think they're ready to have a similar success story to what the A's are looking to have in Las Vegas and what the Golden Knights had in Las Vegas. I think that's what they're really betting on.
I agree. I agree. Joe, is there anything else that you want to talk about tonight? We talked about Garrett Cole. We talked about the two teams that should probably move from their city. Is there anything else?
Well, I will say, new City Connect leaked.
Oh yeah,
The Astros will be
yeah.
the first team to debut their new City Connect, as Nike has set out a 3-year schedule on the uniforms, and parts of the Astros' new uniform, which I believe will debut sometime in March. It'll debut, or they will release it officially, in 4 days on March 20th, but then they will wear it, I believe, on March 30th or something like that. So that leaked. I have mixed feelings about it. It's a mix of this logo with an A, but it's white. I really wish that they already have a white uniform. They should have gone with a different color, but I think it looks good. You know, I like the logo. I think I've seen renderings of the hat. That looks cool. And I just can't wait to see Cam Smith in it. Because I told y'all that he would make the team if he went like 500 throughout the entire spring. I think he's batting like 486 right now. I don't see how he's not on the opening day roster. I mean, I do see it if you want to do like roster manipulation, whatever.
Service time.
I'd be really up,
But
yeah, I'd really be upset if they go that route with him, because he seems ready. I mean, I know that he's faced a lot of like spring training pitching, but it's just the appearance. He looks like he's a major league player already. I mean, you've got major league players that struggled hitting against these single A, double A pitchers, but he's hitting against them like he is truly above them. So I think that he should make the roster. I don't even care where they play him. He should just be on the team playing every day. Let him sink or swim. So that's the last thing I have to say. I mentioned it the other day during the last episode. If he went 500 during spring, then maybe he makes the team. Well, now I'm saying probably should make the team opening day.
I don't disagree at all. I mean, I love watching him take at bats. I love the opposite field power. There is no reason that Chad McCormick or Jake Myers or Mauricio Dubon should start over him.
Exactly.
None of them have had a fantastic spring. None of them have that kind of power. None of them have that kind of arm or athleticism. Give the man the job and let him run with it. If he struggles, okay, you send him to AAA, let him work the kinks out. But when you're hitting homers to right center, your swing is in a great spot. Consistently. You were in a great spot. I just, there's no reason for them to leave him off the roster. I mean, to me, you want to do the service time manipulation stuff? Okay. That's kind of crappy considering the spot you're in because your offense is already not going to be as great as it was to start last year. But honestly, there's no reason right now Cam Smith should hit any lower than like 5th or 6th in the order the way he's been hitting, because he's been driving the ball everywhere. He has been tattooing baseball. I would let him have the job in right field and just let him run with it. Let him run until the wheels fall off or until he struggles a bit, and then either give him a break or send him down or whatnot. I mean, he's gonna have plenty of options, so I would do it, and I wouldn't think twice about it.
Yeah, and I also think that there is a genuinely real path for him, not just the imaginary path in my head where they just say screw Chas McCormick, because Jake Myers is going to be the center fielder when you have Jose Altuve, and potentially Cam Smith, who has never played right field in his life outside of a few innings in spring training at this point. That's going to be a lot of ground that they're going to ask Jake Myers to cover. But if Christian Walker is not ready for opening day, then guess what? You move Isak Paredes to first. Cam Smith slots perfectly into third base. Not his natural position. His natural position is shortstop, but since he filled out a little bit, in college, I think that was where he was playing, is at third. You put him at third base, he's your opening day third baseman. Isak Paredes is playing first base, and you slot him in the lineup. It's simple as that. Now, Joe Espada did say that Walker will be getting at-bats this week, but he could be behind schedule to where they feel comfortable enough to let him start opening day. He's dealt with an oblique injury before, which is the injury that he's dealing with now. And a lot of people are speculating that this was lingering from last year because he missed a month of time last year with the oblique injury. And so I would rather them be cautious with him. I don't care about opening day. I care about, October 8th. October 8th. That's what I care about. Is Christian Walker going to be healthy then? Because obliques notoriously do not go away, and that could be a season killer right there if it is not healed properly. So if he is genuinely not ready, Cam Smith can slot right in. He has earned a spot on the roster. I think that, if Walker's not ready, that's a great spot for him. Speaking of injury, Lance McCullers is also pitching on Tuesday, and the first time since 2022. We'll see how that goes. It'll be one of two starts that he gets during the spring, and then he will start the season off in Sugarland, and we'll see how it goes from there. But that's really all I have.
All right, gentlemen. Well, I think we've had a great podcast tonight. We've talked about our National League preview. We've also talked about some injury updates and some other things, some miscellaneous things. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We do appreciate it. If you have not already, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And shout out to our new subscribers. We've gained like 5 or 6 in the past couple of weeks. So we do appreciate you subscribing and just watching the show. And then also remember, too, if you don't really like watching us or looking at our faces on YouTube, you're more than welcome to just listen to us on Apple Podcasts. I try to get those out as soon as I can. And if you have time, we would really appreciate a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That really does help the show because people will scroll down to the bottom and they will look at those reviews. If a podcast has a 2 or 3-star rating, they're not listening to it. But so far, you guys have been great in giving us those 5-star reviews, so we do appreciate that as well. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy your week.